In our previous episode, we explored Venus, the great magnet that either attracts or repels what you need to stay vitalized. Today, we're diving into the moon, the lens through which you experience the world through your physical senses. Remember, astrology isn't just about telling you who you are. It's a tool for helping you become who you really can be. It's the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. I'm Lori Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Last time we talked about Venus. Today we are diving into the moon. And if you're a patron, then you know I am particularly fond about talking about the moon. In fact, a lot of my predictions are based on lunar transits. I have a program that I taught for quite a while called Living by Luna, where I teach people how to gauge their energy levels and activities by watching lunar transits to their natal chart. By the way, that's coming back very soon. We're updating the book and making it all fancy. But today I want to give you the premise of understanding how even though the moon shines no light of her own, she reflects the light of the sun. How that is so important. And why? Because, again, of male-centric interpretation, because we never got to define femininity for ourselves. Femininity, we could say that word. We never got to define that for ourselves. Almost every definition of what makes feminine behavior feminine was handed down by a man. And then it was repatterned by people trying to be virtuous, good women. The moon has always been considered soft, emotional, as if emotions are bad, anything to do with the idea of inconsistency, moodiness, hysteria, all those fun things. When the moon is actually the lens through which we physically perceive the world, our comfort, our discomfort, our highs, our lows. And no one is a machine that stays completely static all the time, unless they have a very, very rare makeup as a human being. Most of us have some kind of emotional fluctuation. And it's not the moon causing that, but that fluctuation inside of ourselves is represented by our moon in our astrology chart. And it can show when we're going to be more tender or when we're going to be more energized or enjoy things. And there is this connectedness between our sun, our moon, our Venus, our Mercury, our Mars, right? It's an internal system. You know, it's really funny that people know me for my predictions when that's the least of what I do. It's not my speciality. It's not even what I like doing astrologically. I just do it as a public service. What I have specialized in is developing methods for using astrology as a tool for self-determination, self-actualization. It is possible. And we don't have to have every single need met perfectly. In fact, even Maslow's hierarchy of needs was amended in his own lifetime. It didn't get published until after his death in 1971. But because he studied a variety of people who overcame untenable circumstances in their lives, suffered from great persecution, had been starved, unhoused, etc., and yet they still rose above to be self-determinant in their lifetimes. Self-actualization is actually something that you can accomplish regardless of circumstances. It takes a lot of work, and it's sure nice to have those needs met so that it makes it easier. I'm not saying we have to struggle. Not at all. But as somebody who actualizes, because it's an ongoing process until the day we transition, it's something we can do. Even if we've gone through tremendous difficulties and struggled, even if we've been oppressed, it might take a lot of work. But on the other side, I can tell you, it's really worth it. So let's talk about the moon. So the moon is your sensory interpreter. Emotions sometimes don't have a lot of words to them. We often give kids the stickers. I'm happy, I'm frustrated, I'm angry. Some are better than others, right? And we've often grouped these feelings into good and bad. We've moralized them. But what your emotions actually do is they signal to your Mercury and your mind, right? That lets you know how you're doing. So your moon and Mercury work together, your moon and Venus work together, even like forget aspects for a minute. Okay, because if you know a little bit more about astrology, I want you to step away from what you think you know. We're looking at an internal system that is integrated, regardless of the geometric relationships. That's a little more advanced to this concept. So the moon has no light of her own. She reflects the light of the sun. So if your sun is your internal dynamo, your spark of life, your moon is reflecting that out in the world. And it's reflecting that also to you. If you don't have a lot of energy, you're probably cranky. You might get frustrated more easily. You might exhibit your discomfort. You might be teary. Have you ever just gotten teary because you were really tired and maybe a little bit overwhelmed and life was going faster or slower than you wanted it to? Your Venus might have been uncomfortable. It's not small, shallow things. And you may think, man, that was dumb. Why did I get so upset about it? Because your needs weren't being met. Maybe you didn't have enough help. Maybe you felt more alone in things. Or maybe you just felt like there was too many people wanting a piece of you and you didn't have a chance to strike your own balance, to refill your cup. Understanding how your moon operates is really important so that you can be more deliberate in how you approach things. Our moon shows our emotional patterns and some of our social cultural programming. We may have a visceral reaction when we challenge that programming. Like if you were always told you made a good support person and you're suddenly up for a management position and you get it, you may be overwhelmed by that. And you might start to shut down and your insecurities start playing. And that could be a mix of those interior planets in your internal system, but the moon is going to be showing it. That is our big cue. The moon gives us the signals and the cues because Venus gives us a little less signal. She works closer with Mercury. The moon is our signaler. Okay. So the moon doesn't think. It's a feeling sensing thing. It's not a thinking. Thinking is Mercury. Mercury interprets those feelings, but it reacts based on what it's learned that help keep you safe. So when you're a little kid, you make decisions about what works for you and doesn't work for you. They're not necessarily super conscious. You might make some conscious decisions, but we often make unconscious decisions like, oh, grownups are fighting. I'm going to stay really quiet. If I'm not seen, I'm going to feel safe. So there might be some introversion developed and maybe it's more natural for you. Or you might have noticed if you're the star of the show, then it keeps people happy and maybe there's less arguing going on. There's different ways things can manifest. Everybody has their process and their operating manual. So everybody's a little bit different. So when we're talking about the moon, we want to understand it's our sensory interpreter. It's the part that really cues in your body, and it is a lens. It's how your senses take in the world. It says, this feels good, this feels bad, this is familiar, this is unfamiliar. It's not emotional intelligence. That is when we learn to train our Mercury to interpret our moon in different ways so we can respond versus react. It's more about emotional memory when you're an adult. We have a lot of emotional habits, and these are replaying patterns. The good news is we can reprogram ourselves. It might take a little bit of time, but we could do it. So if the moon is sensing discomfort, it can trigger off needing protection. And that can look like hiding, freezing, fawning, placating other people, giving in, over-compromise, or outright fighting. And that's when it calls in Mars. And we're going to talk about Mars tomorrow. But when the moon is panicking, Mars then moves in. If the moon feels threatened, if you feel overly vulnerable, because the moon is also going to show by the sign how we express our vulnerability. So again, some people might cry, some people might retreat and get really, really quiet. Other people might get cranky and sassy. It depends on what the triggers are and your personal makeup. And the threat could be somebody's tone or a look, or maybe you're waiting for somebody to get back to you and they haven't got back to you. Maybe it's a bill. Maybe it's a financial trigger. Maybe your partner's had a bad day and your body says, this feels unsafe. You have an emotional response or reaction to it. The moon working with Mars, if we don't train our Mercury, this is us working very instinctually. And if you don't remember the 3 consciousnesses, go back and listen to episode 1. Your Mars will be like, hey, say something, do something, run away, hide, whatever your default mechanism is for staying safe. And that's how Mercury and Mars end up running the show instead of your sun informing Mercury, Mercury informing Venus, your moon sensing and feeling to report how things are working, and Mars actually doing aligned action. So Venus represents our needs, right? And it informs Mercury if the needs are being met or unmet. And the sun is reflecting those needs back to Mercury as well. So everything's kind of working all at the same time. It's not like, like when you set the Legos up and one has to fall and then everything else has a chain reaction. It's not quite like that. This is an integrated system. So the more we train ourselves to be more deliberate, more on purpose, then we don't have Venus saying, my needs aren't being met. My needs aren't being met. And Mars is like, well, damn it. I'm going to go make that happen. Right? And most of us have been trained to take action before we're aligned to it. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Because we've been trained to believe our only need is income. Not that income isn't needed, but it follows our needs being met already. I know it's a tricky one. It took me a long time to learn. So your Venus waking up and saying, because of a lunar reaction, so maybe somebody ignores you or you feel misheard and it stings a little bit, or maybe it brings up something from the past. The moon's really good at bringing up past things because it's memory, right? It's patterns. So maybe you're not feeling valued. Maybe you're not feeling secure. Maybe you're not feeling attached. You might feel looked over. Maybe you're not feeling included. Maybe you're not feeling resourced. Maybe you're feeling very unresourced. And that's going to put your Mars into a spiral. And if you've got stinking thinking habits, Mercury is going to run on overtime. And that's a lot of times when we get into analysis paralysis or we start acting out of desperation. And that's a lot like when you're driving your car and you get stuck in the mud. If you immediately hit the gas, you're just going to dig those wheels and spin those wheels into the mud. You have to stop and disrupt the pattern, which is like putting something under the tires to get a little bit of a grip. When we do those spin outs, it doesn't help us. In fact, it produces more anxiety. It gets the cortisol flowing. It gets the adrenaline pumping, and it doesn't necessarily put us into right or aligned action. Again, we'll talk more about Mars tomorrow, but it's hard to talk about one without talking a little bit about the others. And when we're spinning out, we're actually repelling what we need, right? So Mars is chasing it, but it's not necessarily catching it. Mercury and the moon. Mercury is the great translator for those big feelings we have. So Mercury might assess it of like, oh, they're hurt. We don't like being hurt. We're going to talk to Venus about this need not being met. Ooh, this is danger, danger, Will Robinson. And it maybe tells Mars to go take some action that isn't helpful. This is how our thought pathways, our emotional habits, and our mental habits play off of one another. And then the stories get told inside our head. So if we feel let down, maybe there's a miscommunication and you feel like you've been forgotten, or somebody maybe you thought they promised something. Maybe they didn't say a promise outright, but you took it that way. And then they act like nonchalant about it. And you're like, oh, they don't care about me. Or I'm going to fail, or I got to hustle, I got to grind. If I don't keep working, I'm going to starve to death, right? And the truth is the hardest working people in the world are often the most poor and the least resourced. I saw that when I lived in the developing world. You couldn't say these people were lazy or didn't work, but they had the greatest amount of struggle. And when you look at billionaires, they're really not working very hard. They make their money off the backs of other people. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into that. But those thought forms that we have, like my value comes from my productivity, that's a social program. And that's one we need to deconstruct. It doesn't mean we don't need to be productive in life. It doesn't mean we don't need to go find resources. That's part of being human. But hustle doesn't always equal success. It does for some people who are really built that way, and it isn't for other people who are not. Understanding this about yourself is important because Mercury can misread the moment, and then the moon is in a reactive habit. And when that happens, then the sun, your energy levels are deeply impacted. You might have insomnia, or you might be hyper somnolent, so people might lose sleep, or you might just be tired all the time. You might sleep more than you ever have in your life because your sun is just like, you know what, this is too stressful. I just need to conserve my energy. I'm going to just shut down for a while so I can rekindle. We get that way when we're stressed out, right? The sun is energized when you are satisfied, and it is depleted when you're running on adrenaline. You might feel very energized at the time the adrenaline's flowing, but afterwards you have a crash, right? Even if you've been super enthusiastic, you might know the energy drop from that. That's why I always say shoot for reasonably content, because that keeps your sun's energy moving a little bit more steadily. And then again, if we have health issues, I myself recently have not had a ton of energy. And it's because I need my glasses replaced. It took a while to get into the eye doctor because of where I live. There's only one, and they're very busy and in demand. They're very good. And it takes a long time for my glasses to come in from being made. And they're hard to make because it's a very, very strong prescription. No one just carries this, but it's like a minus 15. And if you know, you know. And so my glasses have a lot of scratches. I don't notice it because, I'm the type of person I need to be able to see to find my glasses if I can't find my glasses, right? And it was my mom who pointed it out. And she said, you need to call the doctor and get your glasses done. Your glasses are shot. And I thought, wow, is that why I'm so tired? And then my eyes started to hurt. So that's why the podcasts have been one, we've shortened them. And two, the other podcasts that I do have been a little delayed. I don't have the energy. I'm physically depleted until the new glasses arrive. Learning to be okay with physical limitation and accommodate that physical limitation and not beat yourself up when you don't have the energy is really important. And also, not everybody's going to understand it, right? A lot of people don't realize how very bad my eyesight actually is. It's the other reason I haven't been doing astrology readings. I haven't had the energy. Using your sight takes a lot of energy. You may have your own physical challenges that you need to accommodate so your sun has a chance to keep that flame moving. Because as you start to get more tired, it's a sign you need to make a change. Maybe you need to make a change in your diet. Maybe you need a new prescription. Maybe you need another form of accommodation. We often moralize those things, and it makes us feel like we're lacking, or society might say you're undeserving. Screw society, okay? Take care of you. We can hit burnout. Now, our internal flame doesn't snuff out until the end of our lifespan, but burnout can be like a solar flare, right? So when a solar flare happens, it blasts the Earth's magnetic sphere, right? That's how we get the aurora borealis. And those are real pretty, but it's actually a sign there's a lot of energy coming. So when we burn out, our survival senses and our instinctual nature is really running the show. And that takes a toll, and it happens to us all. I don't care who you are, where you're from. This is not uncommon. It can happen when we're overstimulated, we're stressed out, we're unsupported, when our needs aren't being satisfied. And the moon will be your indicator. So the cycle of the moon is when you're reactive and in survival, the moon is triggering Mars, which is talking to Venus, and then Mercury is getting involved. The sun is like, oh my God, I'm feeling depleted. And then Venus is like, oh my God, our needs aren't being met. And Mars is like, I'm going to go get those stuff. And it just becomes a vicious cycle. And we can retrain ourselves and reprogram ourselves to be more deliberate. When we're leading with our energy levels and tuning into our bodies, and we're like, well, how do I feel right now inside of me? Not happy, sad, apathetic, etc., but more like, am I energized or am I depleted? That gives us a lead to make a change to bring us closer into the balance we need to be inside of ourselves. It becomes creative instead of reactive. In the next segment, we're going to talk about how you can upgrade your path by training your moon. So we're going to look at the consciousness here and bring ourselves up a little bit and be a little more deliberate. Hey, I want to thank patrons once again for sponsoring the Awake Space Astrology Podcast. Every Monday, we'll read out our patron shout-outs for our newest members. But I want to shout out just now, thank you to everyone that has been giving feedback on the new podcast format. I'm really glad it's helping you. So we're going to talk a little bit about training the moon and how we are in our consciousness. I go much deeper into this in the Living by Luna process, and that's going to kick back up in 2026. I'm doing a second edition of that book with a journal. And I'm going to have an audio book that goes with it, all sorts of fun things. Just got a green light on that project. My wonderful editor, Jessica, is helping me revise it. Now we're adding some more details in to help people get started with the process. We do discuss the layers of consciousness in depth. But just to give you a taste, just to get you started, to prime the pump for deeper learning, let's talk about training your moon. So first of all, sensing into the present moment. All right. You can use the word feeling, but I think we associate feelings with emotions. But just, again, feeling your physical sensations. Are you warm? Are you cold? How does your body feel? Are you comfortable? Are you sitting in a way that's comfortable? Where are the tension patterns in the body? If something's been going on, like maybe you got a bill you didn't expect, feel into your body. Where is that coming from? You got a little bit of a shock. Where is that in the body? Is it your tummy upset? Is your neck tense? Is your heart palpitating a little bit? Give yourself a minute to work with your Mercury. Okay, notice what your mind is doing. Because some people have internal monologues. Not everybody does. I was really shocked by that. Not going to lie. I was like, what? You don't hear your own thoughts? But for those of you who do, pay attention to the story of Mercury's. I'm in trouble. I can't believe I was so dumb. Why did I do that? That's really irresponsible. Now my credit's going to go down. Now blah, blah, blah. And you know, you're homeless by the end of the story, right? Especially if you were raised to be overly responsible, right? It could be, I'm a loser. I never get it right. You know, we can talk real mean to ourselves. So when you notice that, just stop it. Like literally stop it. Just be like, wow, is that how we talk to our friends? Because if you wouldn't talk to a friend that way, don't talk to you that way. And that's one of the ways I learned to stop those types of thoughts inside my own head. Be like, wow, is that how we talk to our friend? And it'll disrupt you a little bit. You want to find something to disrupt the story. It could be you get up and walk into another room, you go wash the dishes, you tell yourself, well, while I'm feeling this way, it's not a good time to deal with it. I'm going to do something else for 15 minutes and I'm going to come back to it. When you do that, you're giving your Mars some action to do instead of react out of fear. Okay, so you can give yourself a little bit like, I'm going to take a minute and calm down and go do something else, and I'm going to come back to this. That allows your Venus to feel secure. Like, okay, I'm going to take care of this by bringing bringing the temperature down. Venus represents our comfort levels as well, right? So I'm going to make myself a little bit more comfortable, and then I'm going to address this when I feel like I can do it in alignment with the outcome I want to have. And it just makes it easier for problem solving. So when the moon feels safe, when you feel emotionally safe, when you don't feel triggered or threatened, then you're using your Mars in alignment instead of survival mode, because survival mode will burn you out over time, big time. And so when you feel like you're taking wise action or deliberate action, then things open up to have more abundance come in. And abundance doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be food. It doesn't have to be housing or luxury goods. Abundance can be the sensation of being okay. It really can. And when you feel okay, your Mercury is going to be operating with a lot more clarity. You're going to communicate more clearly, and the sun will illuminate. And then the cycle is working in a more deliberate level. And all of the planets are operating. All of the factors, all of the parts of you are working in integration together to move into a more comfortable experience. All right. We're going to do a little bit of practice. So as you go about your day to day, I want you to pause and ask, what am I sensing right now? Okay. Name any discomfort before you act on it. Maybe you're sitting and working at the computer. Take a break, take a minute, and be like, how do I feel right now? Notice if your neck is sore. Straighten up, straighten your posture. Get up and go to the water cooler. Go make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Maybe you could find some Tylenol. Oh no, I said Tylenol. Maybe you could take some Tylenol to ease it up. And maybe you could look for a solution so you're not leaning over. Maybe you could look for something that you could raise and do something maybe more ergonomically for your body. Maybe you're irritated by somebody in the office and just the sound of their voice makes you grit your teeth instead of slamming things or making a pointed comment. Maybe you could go take a walk, take your break and chill out before you come back and deal with it. Maybe they talk a lot and you need quiet. So maybe you can ask for headphones so you can focus. All right. Not every job is going to be accommodating. But if you name it before you act on it, that moment of awareness is what turns a habit into a choice. So if you be like, I'm uncomfortable, what can I do about it? Remember, the power is in the noticing. The perfection is in the correction. This could be little irritations, physical discomfort, emotional discomfort. You might work past the point of needing to have to go to the bathroom. You'd be like, oh my gosh, it's almost too late. I better go do that, right? Instead of worrying about, oh my God, I'm going to pee my pants, right? We all do things like this. Maybe you didn't eat breakfast and you're starting to feel a little woozy. Notice it. Oh, I feel a little woozy. Oh, what do I need? Oh, I'm hungry. Okay, I'm going to go eat something real quick and get back to it. So pay attention to these things today. Notice any discomfort before you take any action. So maybe notice you're hungry before you get hangry at people. And that may make the difference. Next time, we're going to talk about Mars and how to guide your power so you're not burning energy fighting battles that don't matter or being worried about them coming at you. There's lots of ways Mars takes action, and that's what we're going to talk about in tomorrow's episode. Patrons will receive a 1-hour companion video that helps put the internal systems map together and will help you map your system. So if you aren't a patron, make sure you head over to the link in the show notes. That's patreon.com/the Awake Space. And we will be going through the internal systems mapping in a very special extended episode. I want to thank you for listening and for being willing to take on your consciousness and be deliberate in it. That is what will change the world. Your world.